All right, hey Maria. So we're going to talk to Devin Alexander today. Devin's a trailblazing entrepreneur whose journey is a testament to resilience, advocacy, and transformation, some of our favorite things. Devin has a compelling story from his starts in Quincy, Massachusetts, his personal experience that deeply shaped his mission. We're going to address the social injustices caused by the war on drugs. We're going to talk rather than letting adversity define who he is. Devin actually used this as a catalyst to build a mission-driven business that champions fairness, accessibility, and equity within the cannabis industry. Through his participation in the Massachusetts Social Equity Program, Devin gained the critical knowledge and resources to navigate the complex landscape of entrepreneurship and regulation. His efforts not only spotlight the challenges minority entrepreneurs face, but also the emphasis, the importance on community engagement and advancing it, creating a more inclusive business ecosystem, some of our favorite things to talk about. So Devin's story offers a unique perspective on entrepreneurship, on regulatory innovation and social equity, all while challenging stigmas within the cannabis industry. With a steadfast commitment to providing opportunities for those disproportionately impacted by a systemic inequality, Devin stands as a beacon of hope and progress in the evolving world of business and social justice. So welcome, Devin.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Great to have you.
So, Devin, after I have read your story, and it's an amazing story. It has been an incredible ride for you these past 12 years. Can you tell us more about how that journey has shaped you?
Yeah, I mean, it all really started, I'd say 2016, 2017. Now the Massachusetts medical market really started to come online, and I wanted to participate in it. At the time I was working at CVS in the pharmacy as a pharmacy technician, and I quickly realized that the skills that I obtained in the pharmacy would transition very well to go work in the medical cannabis world. So I took online courses from CTU, Cannabis Training University, and I just wanted to tailor make my resume to be very attractive to potential cannabis employers. And so I put in a lot of groundwork. I went to conventions all across New England, up in Maine, down in Rhode Island, and several parts of Massachusetts. And eventually, the doors opened, and I got an entry-level position at a spot in my hometown of Quincy.
Thank you.
So what actually inspired you? So to go from working in a cannabis outlet to running your own shop. And I want to really talk a lot about what you had to do to overcome some of the regulations that were out there in the world, as well as what was happening in some of the towns that you were looking to do business in. I'd love to hear you dive into more around the specific steps that you had to take. I love that you had the education, but I'd love to go from there.
Yeah, it's really just a perfect storm, right? 2020, the COVID pandemic happens, we're on lockdown, and it really, increased the need for delivery services, right? It took off tremendously once COVID hit, and you could get anything delivered to your, household at that point in time besides cannabis. So we saw, the market was missing something, there's a missing piece. And what made Massachusetts so special about their social equity program was they were setting these delivery licenses aside exclusively for participants in this program. So only equity applicants can run adult use cannabis delivery services at this point in time. And so my business partner, his name is Bryce Hall. We met when we were 14. We were freshmen at Quincy High School, and we've known each other, ever since, obviously. And so he was very entrepreneurial himself. He was, a homeowner by the time he was 20. He was a culinary guy, went to Le Cordon Bleu, became an executive chef over at Temple Bar in Cambridge. And, I came to him and I was like, let's just start our own thing, man. Our very first idea was going to be, what it's called a micro business. And so that's really an umbrella term for two types of licenses. It allows you to do cultivation, which is, the growing of cannabis, and then product manufacturing, which is, edible making, topicals, concentrate, tinctures, what have you. And then we would able to get what's called a delivery endorsement, which would allow us to deliver those products. But at that time, they put a cap, right? So when you want to have licenses in Massachusetts, there's certain ownership limits. So If you want to own a dispensary, you can only own up to 3, cultivation up to 3. But the micro business at that time, you could only own 1 micro business, and you couldn't extend your gross square footage above 5,000 square feet. And so there was no room for growth, which meant it was going to be insanely difficult to obtain investors because they wanted to see that growth potential. So we pivoted, right to just do all delivery. We had the name Rolling Releaf made up. We were going to be called, our micro business was going to be called South Shore Greenery, and the delivery wing of it was going to be called Rolling Relief. And it's a name I just always loved, a name that I thought of. It just clicked one day, and I just ran with it ever since. And so we didn't want to miss out on any of the exclusive window that there was had to offer. So we said, let's put all our eggs in the delivery basket.
Yeah.
But we still, I never started a business before, so we had to do a lot of self-teaching, a lot of YouTube, a lot of Google, forming an LLC, that cost $500 with the state, going through the Secretary of the Commonwealth, William Galvin's office, and then opening up bank accounts, finding compliant banking, because cannabis is still illegal on a federal level, which makes it very hard for some to obtain those banking services. And then, just raising capital, which is by far the hardest part of the process because of cannabis's federal illegal status. You cannot go to a bank and get a traditional small business loan, so you have to depend on private investors. And because the delivery model makes it so the equity applicant has to own 51% of that company, it makes it even more harder. It's like, hey, you have to give us all this money, but you're not going to be the majority owner. I have to be the majority owner.
Right.
So all that, just going through all that is really painstaking, and it can really be discouraging sometimes, because when we were going out, going to these investor meetings, people were picking us apart, just trying to decrease our valuation so they can get in on a lower price. And they were telling us everything that we were doing wrong and how everything that we thought was going to work isn't going to work. So just having that support system and just believing in yourself is critical.
But can we I'm going to do a follow-up on that, though, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Because I think it's one thing to kind of manipulate and figure out how to create an LLC, which is difficult enough. We all know that, right? You had all of these obstacles on top of you. What was your support system? Who did you turn to? Where did you get the knowledge, and where did you get the grit to be, okay, tomorrow's another day, and I'm gonna take it on?
My mom, definitely. My mom's my biggest supporter, one of my best friends. And my mother, we're only 16 years apart, so we grew up together, and she instilled the confidence in me. I thought I made it, when I was working in the dispensary. I never really had any ambitions to be a business owner in high school, in college, even when I started in the industry. I was just happy I got to wake up every day and do something I loved and something I was passionate about. In my hometown, the people I was serving were people that I went to high school with, was their parents, some of my old high school teachers that would once chastise me for dealing with cannabis. Now we're like, wow, yeah, over here, this is the great industry to be in. It's very budding, So just having that support system at home is where it all starts, right? And some people don't have that, so I'm very grateful to have that for sure.
That's amazing.
That's lovely. I am a mother of 3 boys and grandmother of several grandkids. So it's always lovely to me to hear somebody speaking so highly about their mom. I have a question for you. Can you share your experience in the Massachusetts Cannabis Social Equity Program? What are some of the key takeaways, and how does this process prepare you at a personal and professional level?
Yeah, I was super excited. So I was part of what they call the first cohort. So they do it in cohorts now. I think now the most upcoming one's going to be the 4th cohort, but I was part of the first one, the inaugural one. And at that time, this is October 2019, this is pre-COVID, so everything's in person. So what they would do is they would have us go to separate locations to take these classes, and it was like 16 courses ranging from accounting, business plan creation, marketing, municipal processes, just learning all that stuff. So our very first class was actually at the Massachusetts State House, and that was the very first time I ever stepped foot in the State House. And our first class was on ownership limitations, and then we had other classes at Bunker Hill Community College, and we had classes at Suffolk University, and it was great because we were taking these classes while they had other courses going on. So we were actually students, right? And we were sitting in the classrooms, but it's all free. We're not have to pay for any of this.
That's
So
amazing.
we're actually learning about stuff that we want to learn about, right? So the first cohort, this is back when I was still working in a dispensary, and I wasn't established as I was. Not a lot of people knew who I was at that time. And so I'm taking classes with people that I would read about and I would see on TV. They're sitting right next to me in class, and I'm asking them all these questions, and they were just the camaraderie, which is huge for me, right? Just I never really knew the need for a support system, like a support group, because there's certain things that I could talk to them about that I couldn't talk to my family about, because my family didn't know about anything about that.
Right.
No one in my family started a business, especially a cannabis business.
Right.
Well, not a legal one anyway. But so just having that support there was critical, and some of them had already been through the process. I didn't start anything until after I finished the program, so people were halfway through, and some people were already completely through, but they still wanted that extra knowledge. And so just having them to lean on, bouncing ideas off of them, and then saying, hey, you think this will work? What did you do when you got to this step? So just having that network, I think that was the first time I realized just how critical networking is in the business world.
What I love is I feel like he just told our story, you and I.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right.
And he's very passionate, and I love that about him. That energy that's coming out in waves, Dev. Thank you.
Yeah, because you, as entrepreneurs, you do have to find people who can go on that journey with you when you are hitting a 10 and you think, I am on top of the world. And then tomorrow, yesterday meant nothing to what today is, right?
That's right.
Tomorrow I'm starting out at a 1. I'm coming, I keep saying I come to the table every day with the same amount of excitement and fear of what in the world is this day going to bring. And
Absolutely.
And that's what brought Maria and I, it was a friend of ours that brought us back together and said, hey, she's in a similar business. And that's what we found from each other. And, look at us now.
Can I ask another question, a follow-up? Now, you mentioned cohorts. How many people was in the first cohort, and do you still in contact with them? Do you collaborate with any of them?
Yeah, so what made Massachusetts so special, and you'll hear them talk about it, is they had the first statewide social equity program in the country. Massachusetts did. California, they had social equity programs, but they varied city by city. So Los Angeles is different from Sacramento, which is different from San Diego. But Massachusetts was uniform across the state. So we're in the South Shore region, then there's the Central region, then there's the Western region. So there's participants in Western Mass who I've never met before, because I'm the Eastern Massachusetts person.
Right.
So I'd say in my Eastern Mass cohort, there was in the first one, roughly 75. And
Wow, that's big.
That is
it's
big.
roughly 75. But there wasn't a lot of public awareness around that at the time. And so it was really just me being in the industry already definitely helped me gain that knowledge. All right, this is what's happening. This is what you got to do at this point in time if you want to be part of it. And so one of the participants in that is one of our good friends that we still work with to this day. They call it Freshly Baked. They were the first social equity micro business to commence operations in Massachusetts, and they're located down in Taunton. And we wholesale their gummies from them, their vaporizer cartridges, and they've been huge for us, in our support and just championing them. And I've always told them they'll always have shelf space with us, because it's tough for the little guys to get shelf space in this market, because people are doing, pay to play. In some cases, they're paying these, retail outlets extra to get those. It's kind of like being in the supermarket, right? Why do you think Pepsi has that big setup right there in front of the No Brain Cola? So just learning all of this stuff has just been so critical in all of this, and sticking together. And I think that's what I really does, because we're stronger together, right? It's really,
It truly is.
It really is stronger together. And a lot of these big corporations aren't from Massachusetts. They come from out of states, and they don't really have that passion. They don't know what works here and what doesn't work here.
It's amazing. And I think, one of the things about our podcast and the people that we speak to are chief procurement officers and procurement people and supplier diversity people, right? That's generally our market. That's what Maria and I work in. But the idea that you've put this relationship together, or these multiple relationships together, and I still keep going back to, how did you know how to do this? right? How did you
Yeah.
know to stay connected to Freshly Baked? How did you know, where to position them? You're moving now. So if we can go back and talk a little bit about who is Rolling Relief,
Yeah.
what do you do? What do you sell? How many cars? Like, give us a little basic on that.
Yeah, Rolling Releaf is a marijuana delivery operator based in Newton, Massachusetts. We were the first Black-owned cannabis business to commence operations in the city of Newton. We are a non-storefront retail. We are open 7 days a week from noon to 9 p.m. We do deliveries in 2-hour time blocks, so 12 to 2, 2 to 4 is all scheduled delivery. There's no on-demand delivery because of the radius that we serve. So as far south we go is Quincy, as far west is Framingham, as far north as Woburn, and as far east is Chelsea, and everywhere in between. And we place an emphasis on local Massachusetts brands because that's just who I am. I was born in Massachusetts. I lived here my entire life. I always used to think that if I wanted to work in this industry, I was going to have to go move across the country to Colorado or California. But I'm very fortunate that wasn't the case because I think I wouldn't obviously have had the support that I had off the rip, and that was who we initially, when we did our launch, we did a soft launch. We only opened up to friends and family. We weren't opened up to general public because we wanted to work out all the kinks first and do all that. And so, just getting better every day. And that's literally better. That's what we have on a whiteboard in our facility. Better every day. That's our motto. Because it was tough starting out. It was very, very tough. We realized quickly that PR and marketing aren't the same thing, and I thought they were. We did a lot of news segments, a lot of broadcasts before we launched, so I was like, oh, we'll be good. It was very, 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 very difficult in the beginning stages. We launched in February of 2023, and March 2023 was without a doubt the toughest month of my adult life mentally. There was days where we would only do one delivery all day, and we would be paying people to sit there. And living in Quincy, going from Newton, it's a 30-minute drive. And so at the end of the day, driving home, I wouldn't even have the radio on. I would just think, how can I get better? How can we do better? And we broke through eventually in May. That May was the upswing. And what we found worked for us well was SEO. We didn't really focus on our SEO, our search engine optimization, before. And it's absolutely critical for us. Google business reviews, doing all those things. And now we're up to 5 vehicles, and we're averaging 60 to 75 deliveries per day now. We have a $60 minimum before tax. So each of those deliveries adds up, and we've seen month over month growth ever since we launched.
Amazing.
And congratulations on that. It takes a special kind of energy to go through something like that. I want to hear a little bit more about your mission, the mission for your company, and how this mission helps your company and the community you serve and you live on.
Yeah, so our mission really is just to provide the best cannabis, clean, tested cannabis to adult use consumers 21 years of age and above. And I just want to show them the creme de la creme that's out there. When I was working in a medical dispensary, when you're working in a medical dispensary or when you own a medical dispensary, you have to be what's called vertically integrated. And so you have to have everything under the same roof. Your cultivation, your product manufacturing, and your retail. So the products that they're selling at the medical dispensary, they all grew themselves, right? And so the dispensary that I was working at, they weren't growing good products. And people were coming in and they were talking them up, and I was like, you think this is good? Let me show you some good stuff. So when adult use came, they broke up that vertical integration law. So you see standalone retails, you see standalone deliveries, you see standalone cultivations. And so that's my favorite part of the process, is going out. It's like putting all together the pieces to a puzzle, seeing who has the best of what, SKUs, what product categories. Oh, these are the best vaporizer guys, these are the best pre-roll guys. But then also just showing people my age and from my ethnicity and background that you can do it well. I grew up in a low income household. I went to public school my entire life. I never went to school for business at all. I never had any of these fancy lawyers or fancy lobbyists to help me achieve my goals. And that's really just showing people what you can do if you believe in yourself.
There's a Spanish quote that says, querer es poder, meaning that if you want it, you can accomplish it. So Bravo for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd love to move into how you feel about being a minority business leader, right? Of which you have presented. I mean, I'm somebody I've watched you for years, right? I've watched you on LinkedIn, and I see the influence that you have in the community. Again, I'm going to go back. How does that feel for you? What's happening in your body and your brain as you're taking your role and your position?
Well, it feels great, right? Because there's not a lot of us here in the space, especially in Massachusetts. Even on a national level, you know, the amount of Black-owned cannabis businesses is less than 10%. And this is $1 billion industry, right? And so the racist war on drugs has mostly targeted Black and brown individuals. You know, Caucasians and African Americans both use cannabis at similar rates, but the African American individual is 4 times more likely to be arrested for their cannabis use than their Caucasian counterpart. And so just being a leader and just showing you, you know, I've made mistakes in my past, but I didn't let those mistakes define me. You know, the book Malcolm X, you know, in high school, you know, that's when I dealt with my little run-in. But I was also reading the autobiography of Malcolm X. And Malcolm X was Malcolm Little, and he was a criminal, and he was doing bad things. But then when he went to jail in Charlestown, here in Massachusetts, he became Malcolm X, and he became a great speaker and a powerful orator and a huge influence. I would never, ever compare myself to Malcolm X, ever. But, you know, that was very influential in me to show, yeah, your past doesn't define your future.
That's right.
So true. So true. Let's talk a little bit about diversity. How do you view diversity in the cannabis industry today? And why is it essential to have Black-owned businesses like Rolling Releaf represented?
Yeah, it's definitely critical. It's definitely major, and it's definitely it needs a lot of work, especially with a lot of other industries rolling back their DEI initiatives. I think now more than ever, it is critical we push forward with these DEI initiatives and present them, you know, but I think there needs to be, you know, social equity programs for more than just cannabis. I think people really are using cannabis as a cop-out, as a form of reparations in some way. And that's not going to solve everything just through cannabis, right? There needs to be social equity programs for law. There needs to be social equity programs for film. There needs to be social equity programs for medicine and things like that, right? And
Absolutely.
So, it's just unfortunate how American society has played itself out over the past decades, and how we've seen who has really been in the lower echelon to obtain generational wealth. I think that's a huge key word that they use, and it's a word that sometimes I don't like to say it honestly, because you sell people false hope in some sense. This is a really tough industry to be in, and not everybody makes it to where we are, and so I'm insanely grateful for that. And some people position the social equity program as, hey, you get in this program, everything's going to work out for you. It's going to be sunshine and rainbows. Your whole life's going to be great. And I like to compare it to fishing, right? I see the social equity program as like this amazing fishing rod. Yeah, you have the fishing rod, but you still got to reel in the fish.
That's right.
But you have a better chance to reel in that fish as a general applicant, i.e. someone who doesn't have a fishing rod, who's fishing with their bare hands, you know. And so it's great, but it still needs work. We can always improve, and we can always get better. I think, you know, a key thing that helped us was getting pro bono assistance from our law firm. We didn't get that from the Massachusetts Social Equity Program. We got that from an incubator program. It was known as Lantern at the time. So Lantern was the cannabis equivalent of the delivery service Drizzly, which services alcohol, which was started here in Massachusetts. And so once they created that incubator program for Lantern, I got accepted into that with like 4 other people. And having that pro bono attorney until we launched was absolutely critical, because those go for like $700 an hour. And so that's where a lot of people slip up before, you know, they even get to launch their doors, is by paying all those legal fees.
Again, it's the moving that you've done. It's that grit of finding all of those programs that just amaze me.
Yeah, no, it's tough, and it's really, I didn't believe it, because when the guy came to me initially, I was extremely skeptical, and this is pre-COVID, right? And he's like, "Hey, man, we're gonna start this whole." I didn't even know what Drizzly was at that point in time.
Yeah.
Now there's commercials all over the place, and so once COVID hit, Drizzly blew up like 500,000%. It became like the Amazon of alcohol e-commerce, and I was like, "All right, I should probably hit this guy up." So I hit him up. I was like, "Hey, man, I'm so sorry," and thankfully he responded, and. The law firm Vicente Cedarberg, they've been with us since 2020, and I wouldn't be where I am without them. That's 100% true.
That's amazing. So I'd love to know, what's your legacy going to be, right? What's the legacy you're hoping to leave behind for future leaders? What's your message to them, and how do you go about delivering it?
Just by being myself. Just by showing up every day, talking the talk, but also walking the walk, and just making myself accessible. I'm not the kind of CEO that sits in an office all day with his door closed. I'm in there, I'm in the field, I'm making deliveries, I'm introducing myself to our customers, and to asking them what they want to see in our menu. A lot of people think they know, but what better people to ask than the people buying from you, right? And so, so we like to do that a lot. And I want my legacy to be someone that, stood up for what he believes in and trusted his gut. A lot of people told me I was crazy. A lot of people said I was foolish. A lot of people told me everything that I have would never happen. But again, it goes back to having that support system, close friends, close family. And just taking it day by day. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It took us 3 years to get a license, and there was many roadblocks along that way. And sometimes you just got to take a step back, take a refresh. But also, it's all about balance too. Finding, pushing yourself, but also giving yourself grace and taking care of yourself too. Me and my business partner, we're both very hard on ourselves. It's really helped fuel us. But we also have to remember, at the end of the day, we're only human, and we have to take care of our mental wellness and our physical well-being at the same time.
One more follow-up to that. How do you balance that, right?
That
because
was my question.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I wanted to ask him that because there's a lot of young entrepreneurs out there and people that have been in the business for a long time. And I can tell you that I hear the same thing. Maria, how do you handle the mental wellness with everything that's thrown at you? How do you do it? What tools do you use? What check and balances do you use? Because it's very important for our audience to hear that.
So a lot of positive affirmations, writing stuff down, writing stuff tangible. My business partner, again, Bryce, he really inspired me. He was living at his mom's house back in the day, and the house that he ended up buying, he had it cut out, and he taped it to his ceiling of his bedroom. So every morning when he woke up, he saw it.
That's amazing.
And right before he went to bed, he saw it. So that was, wow. It blew my mind. I was like, I have a lot of friends. I have a huge network, but, I chose Bryce because I knew he was the right fit. I just knew from the get-go that he was going to be that guy. And so what we do to help balance out each other is just talking it out, right? Sometimes as men, especially, as a black man, you have to carry this tough guy facade, and just leave it all built in, but you got to let it out. You got to just talk it out, express yourself. How are you feeling? How can we, move past this, right? Don't be passive aggressive. Don't bottle it all up. Express yourself, express what's on your mind, and then exercise, get out there, wake up early, go to the gym, put good supplements in your body, eat well, take care of yourself like that. And I think that's what's really helped us get to a point where all the negativity just bounces off of us now, and we just roll with the punches.
Great, that's a great answer. Thank you.
So, as you know, we're procurement people. We're supplier diversity and procurement people, Maria and I. And I'd love to know what tools or resources were important to you when you were opening up your business, because supply chain is important and it's valuable, right? And a good supply chain does a lot of different things. And I'd love to know, how is it important to you? You talked a little bit about Fresh Baked and some of your other relationships. I'd love to know what does your internal procurement process look like, and how do you manage it?
It's definitely one of my favorite parts of the job. So I never blind buy from any particular supplier. Every Monday, my email inbox will get flooded with menus, offerings from all across the state. Some people I know, some people I don't know. A lot of them find my email through LinkedIn and they just send off a menu. But I would never put anything on my menu that I wouldn't personally consume myself. And so I go out to these facilities, I go to their spot, I look at their process, what ingredients they're using, what grow processes they're using, but also how they're treating their employees, right? And then also how their employees look. And if it's just a fault, if you're miserable and you're in this industry, something's going on. Because this is a great, I get so excited waking up every day and getting to do what I do. And a lot of people share that sentiment, right? And so it's a privilege because they're individuals that are currently still incarcerated for doing what we're doing right now legally. So I never take that for granted ever. And so after I, try the products, make sure it's good, that passes the test, and I say, okay, we do everything. In Massachusetts market, everything's on terms now. Net 30, net 60. Some people will do COD with, right? If they, and they'll give us, discounts for doing COD. But that's also a huge, huge problem right now in this industry. Is the account receivables. Some people just aren't paying, and there's no process, right? You can't declare bankruptcy either because it's still federally illegal. So there's a lot of people that are just nasty. So before, it was a grower's market because there wasn't that many online, right? So who are you going to go to? You have to go to us. Now it's flipped on its head. Now it's a buyer's market. You got to offer me this price or else I'll go to this person and they'll offer me this. But we don't like to, sacrifice quality, right? I'm very big on affordable and quality. Sure, I can get stuff for a much lower price, but there's connoisseurs, right? And so we like to have a little bit of everything for everyone. Our highest priced products for our 3.5s are $45, and our lowest price is $20, and so it's tough because there's a 20% adult use tax here in Massachusetts. Not every state is like that. Some states are lower, some are higher. So it's just finding that happy medium for what works and what the consumers want, right? There's been stuff that we've brought on and it just sat on our shelf, and then we'd had to knock down the price to get it off our shelf. So
I love that you just talked about cash on delivery, because I think that is, regardless of the industry, that's an amazing negotiation tactic, right? Is who's going to get paid fastest, or who's going to pay fastest, gets better pricing, gets better quality, gets better.
Oh yeah.
So I love that you put that in as part of your process. I also love that you're working with small businesses, diverse businesses, and are now in a position to maybe offer a little more COD, right?
100%.
Because from a supplier diversity perspective in any industry, one of the driving hopes that we talk about is, how do we ensure narrowing the scope for terms? Because it's tough for small businesses, right? It's tough for business, but it's much more, it's much more difficult for small businesses to get that capital. So I love that you do that. I love the fact that you're the message of supplier diversity on both sides of that message, and I love the work that you've done.
I'm gonna pick your brains now.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years from today?
On a beach in Puerto Rico.
Love the answer, people. Love the answer.
Really more, more advocacy work and probably more, government affairs. I can do the entrepreneurial stuff. I've proven that, but I really enjoyed, the advocacy work that I've done. We've changed Massachusetts law on multiple occasions now.
Bravo.
And we're in the history books because of that, and people remember. And I think that goes back to legacy, right? We remembered as those people that did that, and we've paved the way for other people to come behind us, and they don't have to go through the struggles that we had to go through. And so I would say, maybe I might just work at the Cannabis Control Commission 5 years from now, being a commissioner.
I like that.
We'll see what happens.
I like that. Absolutely.
There it is, Governor Healy. Let's listen up.
You heard it here first.
No, I think that's amazing, and I think you've certainly set your. I think you're setting your sights aligned with what you've done, which, again, speaks to exactly who you are, exactly what your mission has been all of these years, and the idea that you've been able to roll it out, grit, perseverance, resiliency.
It's admirable. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So Deb, you've talked before about consumer equity, because here in Massachusetts we have this open city regulations. Can you talk a little bit about that, and do you see it changing, and how impactful will it be to businesses?
Yeah, no, definitely. And so there's certain cities and towns here that don't allow for any cannabis sales, and that was due to the citizens in their towns voting no on question 4 back in 2016. It can definitely show a lot of disparities. So for instance, we're in Newton, which is a yes town, but then right next to us in Wellesley is a no town. So God forbid one of our best customers that lives in Newton moves to Wellesley, we wouldn't be able to serve them anymore because of these borders, these imaginary lines. So there is progress now being made on that front. They're going to be bringing that up at this month's Cannabis Control Commission meeting. And then State Rep Mike Conley recently filed a bill in the House that will allow us to do so. And so that would be tremendous for delivery companies, because it would really just widen our consumer base. And then being able to deliver to places where retail locations still can't set up would be absolutely critical for us. Would expand our revenue quite significantly, and that's something that I'm going to be working towards a lot this year, and as many years as it takes to get done.
There's cities and towns out there that don't allow any cannabis sales, whether they're retail, brick and mortar, or delivery.
That's
so
correct.
This is going to be changing that so that you'll be able to deliver to those cities and towns, but there still won't be brick and mortar.
Correct, and that's that's up to them, right? Because a lot of these cities and towns, they collect what are called community impact fees from these cannabis businesses setting up. So they're getting 3% of these businesses' annual gross revenue. So if they're so fixated on receiving that revenue, then just lift the moratorium in your town. And so us being in Newton, delivering to all these multiple cities and towns, the only city that's seeing anything from us is Newton, because it's our host city. So Waltham isn't seeing anything from us, Cambridge isn't seeing anything from us, so if you're so gung-ho about receiving it, just lift the cap, lift the band, let these retailers set up, and do all that. Like, what are you so concerned about, right? And that's my big question to all these cities and towns. The illicit market is going to continue to thrive, because newsflash, there's still going to be cannabis sales going on, whether they're legal or illegal or not. So if you want to legalize them, you want to make sure is your focus on tax revenue or consumer safety. That's what it really comes down to. You can have both, but if you care about both, listen to one. But consumer safety, you're making sure these people are getting clean, tested products from trusted sources.
Appreciate that.
As we are nearing our end of this podcast, is there anything special or anything specific you want to say to our audience?
Yeah, if you're an entrepreneur out there and you're going through it right now, just it's all about your support system, and just believe in yourself. Support yourself with like-minded individuals. Identify your weaknesses, identify your strengths, and surround yourself with people whose strengths are your weaknesses.
That's wonderful. Deb, this was amazing. It's always good to see you. Thank you so much for doing this podcast.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
It was great meeting you. And I want to leave with this quote. Let's continue to amplify diverse voices and foster meaningful dialogues. Until then, this is Maria.
And I'm Lisa, and thank you for joining us on the Diversity Duo, where culture meets commerce, and we'll see you next week.